They say that in China there were once two villages, one on either side of a river. On this side of the river was the village of Wei, and on that side, the village of Chu. Now, the villagers of Wei were farmers, and they grew only one crop, melons. But what melons they grew! Oh, they were the sweetest, juiciest melons in the land, and when they took them to market, people fought to buy them, and they gave very good prices for them. And so the village of Wei grew very prosperous. Over the river, the villagers of Chu were also farmers, and they also grew melons, but their melons were not famous. In fact, they were infamous for being dry and flavourless. So when they took them to the market, only the poorest people would buy them. And so they remained poor. As time went on, some of the villagers of Chu began to look across the river at their rich neighbours in the village of Wei. They looked and grew jealous. Then one night, some of the men were gathered talking and drinking. And as they drank and talked, the talk turned to the village of Wei, and their talk became angrier and angrier, until at last one man said, "Let us go! Let us go and destroy their melon fields. Why should they have so much when we have so little?" And so they went. They went back to their homes, and they got their chunkles and their axes, and they crept over the bridge into the melon fields of Wei. And they hacked and hacked until every single melon and melon plant was destroyed. The next morning, when the villagers of Wei went out into their fields, they couldn't believe what they saw. Their whole crop of melons had been destroyed. They looked at each other. And then they looked across the river. They knew who had done it. And they vowed that that evening they would go and destroy the melon crops of the village of Chu. But the headman of the village was an old man called Song. He was very old, and age had given him some wisdom. And so he called the people together and he said, "I know you are angry. It is right that you are angry. I too am angry at what the Chu villagers have done to us. But if you go tonight and destroy their crops, our two villages, who have lived in peace for so many years, will be enemies. I have another idea. Instead of going tonight with your axes, go this morning with your watering cans. Go and water the melon fields of Chu, for the reason that their melons are not sweet and juicy like ours is that they do not know how to grow them properly. They do not know when to water them. They do not know when to feed them. They do not know the right time to pick them. Go and teach them, and then we can live in peace." Now the villagers of Wei were still very angry, but enough of them respected Song, and they listened to him, and they persuaded the others. And so they took their watering cans and filled them in the river, and they went over the bridge into the village of Chu. When the Chu villagers saw them coming, they were very frightened. And they were suspicious when they began to water the melon fields. Were they trying to poison the crops? But then the villagers of Wei began to talk to them and teach them the way to grow sweet, juicy melons. And they started to listen. They listened and they learned. And in time, in the markets, people didn't just talk about the sweet, juicy melons of Wei. They also talked about the wonderful melons from the village of Chu. And so the villagers of Chu also became prosperous. But they did not forget the wisdom and the kindness of the Wei villagers. And so they had a special medal of friendship made. And they presented it to Song, the headman of the village of Wei. And if you go to China today and you find those two villages, one on either bank of a river, be sure to go to the house of the headman in the village of Wei and ask to see that medal of friendship. For maybe, just maybe, it's still there.